All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into silent graves, a hallucination, or reality.
Ooh,
That's the one you sent me.
Yeah.
And just the title itself, I mean,
That's spooky.
it is spooky.
Yeah.
And we're looking at an excerpt from the story. Obviously, we don't have the whole thing in front of us, but
Right.
but even the excerpt, I think, is really effective.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's about this group of friends who basically decide to explore an abandoned graveyard.
As you do.
As you do, right?
On a dare.
Yeah, it's a dare situation.
Classic.
And things go bad
They do.
pretty quickly.
Quickly.
And the thing that I found most interesting about this story
Yeah.
was how it really kind of messes with your mind.
Oh, for sure.
You know, you're reading it and you're like, wait a minute, what's real, what's not?
Totally.
What's going on?
It uses those classic horror tropes so well, you know?
Right.
You've got the spooky setting, you've
Sure.
got the group of friends kind of tempting fate a little bit, and then boom, somebody disappears and it just throws you right into the chaos.
Yeah, and it makes you think about like how much we depend on our senses
Right.
to tell us what is real.
Exactly.
And what if your senses are lying to you?
What if what you're seeing
Right.
isn't actually what's happening?
And I think that's the core of what this story's getting at.
Yeah, and I think it's really smart how the story focuses on Faiq,
Okay.
one of the friends.
Mhm.
And he's apprehensive from the start.
Okay.
He even says at one point, something doesn't feel right here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just go back.
Like a sixth sense almost.
Yeah, almost like a premonition.
Yeah.
Like he knows something bad's gonna happen.
That's interesting because it's almost like, you know, in a horror movie when somebody says that, you're like, don't go in there.
Right.
Don't do it.
Exactly, don't tempt fate.
But it's almost like he's sensing it more on like an internal level.
Yeah, we don't know if it's like a real danger or
No.
if it's something inside of him. You know.
Oh, like psychological danger?
Oh, yeah, it's psychological danger.
Interesting.
And as the story unfolds, you know that line between reality and hallucination?
Yeah.
It gets really blurry.
Right.
The author does a great job of like slowly building that suspense,
Right.
starting with this like initial feeling of unease
Right.
as they're walking into the graveyard.
You know, it's funny because you would think that a graveyard during the day would be less scary
Dang.
than a graveyard at night.
But something about a graveyard, even in broad daylight, just has that
Eerie.
eerie
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, the tension keeps building.
Oh, yeah.
First, Harris disappears.
Right. One of the friends.
One of the friends vanishes without a trace.
Ron.
And then, boom, the flashlight dies.
Oh, no.
Now they're stuck in darkness.
That's so scary.
And then on top of it all,
Uh-oh.
you hear this creepy child's laughter
Oh, God, no.
just echoing in the graveyard.
That's terrifying.
Like it's straight out of a nightmare.
Yeah. And the way the author describes the setting, too,
Yes.
it's almost like the graveyard itself is like,
a character.
yeah, it's like closing in on them.
Yeah, this oppressive landscape that's almost like trapping them.
Right.
You really get the sense that the environment itself is like,
Hostile.
yes,
Hostile.
like it doesn't want them there.
Exactly.
It's pushing them out.
Which just adds to the terror.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not a place you want to get stuck,
No,
especially in the dark.
not at all.
And then they find Saad,
They do.
and it's not good.
No, it's not pretty.
Not pretty at all.
And that's where the story really gets interesting.
Okay.
Because it forces us to ask that question.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
is this actually supernatural?
Right.
Or is this all in Fake's mind?
Is he imagining all of this?
Yeah, is he creating this horrifying reality because he can't deal with something else?
And that's where that twist comes in, right?
Right, because then we learn from the doctor
Yeah.
that Fake's friends actually died.
Oh my gosh, the previous year in an accident.
So this whole time we've been reading this and we're thinking,
Right, we've been following Fake's perspective this
Yeah.
whole time.
and now we have to rethink everything.
And now everything's in question.
Oh, wow.
Is he seeing ghosts, or is this just his grief and trauma
Right.
manifesting as these really vivid hallucinations?
So he's an unreliable narrator?
Classic unreliable narrator.
Okay.
You never know if you can trust what he's seeing.
So are we reading a ghost story or a psychological thriller?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The doctor seems to think it's a form of psychosis,
Okay.
brought on by his grief and trauma.
So he's hallucinating his dead friends.
Potentially.
Wow. It's like the whole story just got flipped on its head. It
Yeah.
really makes you go back and like reread everything.
Absolutely.
Thinking about it from that perspective.
Absolutely.
Thinking about it from that perspective.
With that new
Makes
information.
me, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Were there ghosts?
Were there ghosts, or is this all in his head?
Or was it his imagination the whole time?
Exactly. And that ambiguity,
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes it so compelling.
Yeah.
It leaves you with this doubt.
Uh-huh.
You know, it makes you question the nature of reality itself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But then there's another twist.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Before we get to that, I think we should pause here.
Okay.
And give everybody a chance to kind of absorb everything we've talked about so far.
Sounds good. It is a lot to take in.
Right. And like we were saying, just when you think you've got it all figured out, the author throws in this other twist.
Yeah.
Remember the doll that Faiq sees in the graveyard?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doctor drops that same doll from his pocket.
No way.
Yeah. So it's like this tiny little detail.
Right.
But it just like throws everything back up in the air again.
It makes you question everything all over again.
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If it was all in his head, how did the doctor get the doll?
Right. Where did that doll come from?
It's like the story is almost daring you to pick a side.
Yeah. Are you team supernatural or team psychological thriller?
Right. And the thing is, there's no right answer.
Exactly.
It's that the author just kind of leaves you hanging.
In this delicious uncertainty.
Right. And that uncertainty, I think, is what makes for really good horror.
Oh, absolutely. It taps into our deepest fears about the unknown.
Right. Like what we don't know is scarier than what we do know.
And it also makes you question, like, how fragile our own perception of reality is.
You know, that's so true. It's like, have you ever had an experience where you weren't sure if something was real or if you were just imagining it?
All the time.
Right.
Our minds are so powerful, you know. They can conjure up some really vivid and terrifying things.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Especially when you're dealing with strong emotions.
Like fear.
Fear, grief.
It's like if you're walking alone at night
Right.
and you hear a noise, suddenly every shadow is like a monster.
Exactly. Every little creak and...
Yeah, and it's like your mind is filling in those blanks.
Creating this whole narrative that might not actually be true.
And that's kind of what's happening with Faiq, right?
Yeah, his grief over his friends, it's so strong that it's warping his reality.
Like he's seeing things that might not be there.
His subconscious is creating this whole experience.
To deal with the trauma.
Exactly, as a way of coping.
So what does that mean for us?
Well, I think it encourages us to be more critical thinkers.
Okay.
You know, to question what we're seeing and hearing.
Don't just take everything at face value.
Right, and to be open to the idea that there might be more to the story.
Like there might be another explanation.
Exactly.
Because what we think is real might not be.
Our perceptions are always subjective.
We all see things differently.
Filtered through our own experiences and beliefs.
It's kind of like that saying, seeing is believing.
Right.
But maybe we shouldn't always believe what we see.
Maybe there's more to it than that.
It reminds me of those optical illusions.
Oh, yeah.
Where you see one thing and then suddenly you see something totally different.
Your brain flips the image.
It's like the same picture.
Same information.
But you're seeing it in a different way.
Your perception changes.
It makes you realize that your brain is constantly working.
Constantly trying to make sense of the world.
And sometimes it gets it wrong.
Yeah, and when you add strong emotions into the mix...
Like in the story.
It gets even more complicated.
Yeah, so we can't really say for sure if the ghosts in silent graves were real or not.
It all comes down to interpretation.
How much do you trust Faiq?
Exactly. And how much weight do you give to his version of events?
It's like the story doesn't want to give you a straight answer.
It wants you to think for yourself.
Which makes it all the more effective.
It leaves you with these lingering questions.
About the nature of reality.
And the power of the human mind.
You know, it's funny, we started off talking about ghosts. And now we're having this deep conversation about psychology and perception.
And that's the power of a good story. It can really make you think.
It can take you to unexpected places.
And spark these amazing conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, like, how much of what we see and hear is actually, like, real, you know?
Right. Is it actually happening, or are we just making it up in our heads?
Exactly. It's like, is there even such a thing as objective reality, or is it all just like a matter of perspective?
That's a good question. It's like, on the one hand, we know there's a physical world out there.
Right. The world exists.
Right, like the chair I'm sitting on is real. I can touch it.
Yeah, but it's how we interpret the world.
Yeah.
Like how our brains take in all that sensory information and try to make sense of it.
Right.
That's where it gets tricky.
So like you're saying, our brains are basically like filtering everything we experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're not seeing the world directly. We're seeing it through this lens of our own, you know, experiences, beliefs, emotions, memories.
It's kind of like those optical illusions.
Yes, exactly. Where you look at something and you swear you're seeing one thing, and then suddenly it's like your brain flips a switch.
And you see something totally different.
But it's the same image.
The same information is there.
But your perception has changed.
Your brain is like, oh wait, I was wrong about that.
And that's kind of scary in a way.
Yeah, it is. It makes you realize that you can't always trust your own senses.
Right, like what you see might not actually be what's there.
Especially when you factor in things like strong emotions or trauma.
Like in the story with Faiq.
Exactly. His grief is so powerful that it's distorting his perception of reality.
So it's almost impossible to separate what's real from what's not.
Yeah, you're left with this uncertainty.
And that's what makes the story so effective.
It doesn't give you easy answers.
It forces you to confront those questions yourself.
To think critically about what you believe.
And to question your own assumptions about the world.
About what's real and what's not.
You know, it's funny how we started off talking about a ghost story, and we've ended up having this deep philosophical conversation.
About the nature of reality.
That's the beauty of storytelling, I guess.
It can really expand your mind.
And make you see the world in a whole new way.
Absolutely.
So for anyone listening who's intrigued by silent graves,
yeah,
I highly recommend checking out other authors who play with these ideas.
Like Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah, he was a master of the macabre.
And H.P. Lovecraft.
His stories are so creepy and atmospheric.
They're not for the faint of heart.
But if you're looking for a good, mind-bending read,
they're definitely worth checking out.
I think that about wraps up our deep dive into silent graves.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
From ghosts to psychology to the nature of reality itself.
It's been a fascinating journey.
I hope everyone listening enjoyed it as much as we did.
Me too.
And if this conversation sparked some thoughts or questions for now,
yeah,
don't hesitate to reach out and share them with us.
We love hearing from our listeners.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open.